There is a moment in the early hours of morning when the world feels undecided. The sky has not yet chosen a color. The air is neither night cool nor day warm, and the rooms around you rest in a kind of patient stillness. In that uncertain hour, before anything fully begins, light arrives. Not all at once, not in a grand display, but with the quiet confidence of something that has done this every day for billions of years. It slips into the dark the way a careful guest enters a sleeping house, making just enough presence known, but never enough to disturb what is already resting. Before we slowly explore the quiet wonders of light, take a gentle moment to like and subscribe to the Late Night Scientist channel, and let me know in the comments when and where you're listening, so this peaceful science can reach more sleepy minds drifting into rest. Are you ready? Let's get started. Before it has a direction or a shape, light appears simply as the soft suggestion of visibility. It gathers in the corners of the room, almost shy, settling gently against the outlines of objects that have been there all night, waiting without complaint. The edges of a table begin to soften. A curtain shifts from pure shadow into something slightly more textured. The floor collects a faint glow, as though it has remembered something pleasant. There is no rush. Light is in no hurry. It has traveled an immense distance to get here, and now that it has arrived, it moves as though it has all the time in the world. If you sit quietly enough, you can almost imagine light taking a moment to stretch after its long journey, loosening itself across the room, brushing softly against walls and windowsills, inspecting the space not with intention, but with gentle curiosity. It feels less like an event and more like a gradual sigh, the kind the earth releases when it senses the sun lifting toward the horizon. In this early hour, light is not yet the bright, decisive force that commands the day. It is more of a companion, easing its way into awareness, one soft breath at a time. There is something almost ceremonial about the way dawn light behaves. It does not need to declare anything. Its presence alone reshapes the scene. Details that were hidden a moment earlier begin to appear with delicate clarity, as though the world is being repainted one silent stroke at a time. Shadows adjust themselves politely, stepping back or leaning forward, depending on where the earliest rays choose to gather. Even the quietest objects seem to shift their mood in the presence of soft morning brightness. A bookshelf becomes more patient, a chair more contemplative, a sleeping pet slightly more luminous in its dreaming. Light, in these first few minutes, is not yet an explanation. It is simply a feeling, the sense that something kind and ancient has reached the world again. It brings with it no urgency. It does not hurry anyone awake. It does not demand attention or require interpretation. It moves slowly, with a grace that suggests it understands the value of beginnings. Even the air feels different, filled with a hush that seems to ask the world to remain gentle just a little longer. If one were to consider light as a traveler, then dawn is perhaps its most graceful entrance. After spending the night beyond the horizon, it rises like someone returning home, familiar with every shape of the landscape, every line of the earth's curve. It doesn't fling brightness over everything at once. Instead, It lets the world reacquaint itself with visibility. The smallest things, dust drifting peacefully in the air, the grain of wood beneath a window, even the faint reflection in a glass cup, each comes forward in its own time, as though waking from an unhurried sleep. There is a subtle humor to how light behaves in these early moments. It has crossed space at unimaginable speed, outraced the very rotation of the planet, and yet, once it arrives, it proceeds with the languid pace of someone wandering into the kitchen before sunrise, deciding whether to reach for a cup or simply admire the quiet. Light seems perfectly comfortable existing in contradictions, swift beyond comprehension, yet slow in its presence, energetic in nature, yet soothing in effect. It may not carry a personality in any literal sense, but its arrival carries a sense of character, a kind of ancient calmness that has seen everything and is determined not to startle anyone. As the minutes slide by, light begins to settle more deeply. The ceiling grows a little brighter, the shadows a little softer. The world outside the window gathers form. The silhouettes of trees begin to separate. Rooftops define themselves. The sky begins its long process of choosing what color it wants to be. Even then, the transition remains gradual. Light behaves like someone familiar with the art of entrances, aware that the most memorable ones are those that feel effortless and unforced. Eventually, the room is no longer dark. It is not fully bright either. It simply exists in a kind of balanced quiet, illuminated just enough to reveal its shapes, but not enough to erase its softness. Light has arrived, not as an explanation or a scientific entity, but as a presence, patient, steady, and endlessly gentle. It fills the space the way a calm thought settles into the mind, slowly, without pressure, without expectation. And in this early moment, before the noise of the day begins, before brightness takes its full form, you can appreciate light not for what it does, but for how it moves. Through time, through distance, through rooms that still hold the warmth of sleep. Its journey is vast, but its arrival is tender. And tonight, or tomorrow, when it fades again into dusk, it will leave with the same grace, quietly, respectfully, as though stepping out of a room where someone is just beginning to dream. Light is a traveler unlike any other. It moves in a way that almost feels like a contradiction, swift beyond imagination, yet so subtle in its passage that it leaves no trace of having been anywhere at all. It does not press footprints into dust or ripple the air as it goes by. If it makes a sound, it is too quiet and too quick for any ear to notice. And yet, despite this weightless elegance, light is full of motion, the kind of motion that refuses to slow down, as if it learned long ago that stopping simply isn't part of its personality. If you were able to follow a single beam of light as it leaves its source, you might expect to see some sign of effort, some faint whisper of movement, like the eddies left behind a bird's wing or the soft wake of a boat gliding over still water. But light gives no such clues. It glides forward with the absolute directness of something that has only one instruction: keep going. No hesitation, no drifting, no meandering sideways. just forward, always forward, through open space, through thin air, through anything willing to let it pass. What makes light's motion especially curious is how it commits to speed with such unwavering loyalty. There are no gentle accelerations, no moments when it takes a deep breath before picking up pace. The instant it begins its journey, it is already traveling at its maximum speed, almost as though the universe established a rule long ago. If light is going to exist, it must do so with complete conviction. There is no leisurely strolling for this traveler, no opportunity to wander or reconsider. It is born moving, and motion is the entirety of its lifestyle. And yet, for all this commitment to speed, light carries no mass, not the tiniest hint of physical substance to weigh it down or push it forward. It is movement without material, motion without matter. It behaves like a guest at the cosmic banquet who shows up with no luggage, no shoes, and no intention of sitting down, slipping past with the manners of someone who knows they won't be staying long. The strangeness of something that moves so powerfully without mass is one of nature's quiet marvels. We're accustomed to thinking of force as something that comes from weight, heavy things pushing, pulling, or colliding. But light, in its own subtle way, can push as well. Not because it has weight to throw around, but because its motion is so persistent. When light strikes an object, it exerts a tiny pressure, the faintest nudge imaginable. It's like being tapped on the shoulder by a very polite ghost, one that refuses to admit it had any intention of disturbing you. Over immense distances, this gentle pressure can shape the behavior of matter. Dust drifting near a star can slowly be shepherded outward by the star's light, guided by nothing more than this steady stream of weightless motion. Even comets feel the influence, their tails stretching away as though being brushed by an invisible breeze. It is one of the universe's softer jokes that something without mass can persuade things with mass to move aside. Proof that having presence does not necessarily require having substance. Part of what makes light such a fascinating traveler is how effortlessly it crosses the emptiest places. Space, with all its vastness, offers nothing in the way of comfort or support. There is no road, no medium, no surface. It is a cold, silent openness, stretching farther than any imagination can conveniently hold. And yet, light crosses it without complaint, without fatigue, without even the courtesy of slowing down to admire the scenery. It simply continues, as though the lack of obstacles is pleasant, or at least acceptable. In many ways, light behaves as though it has no relationship to time at all. For the rest of the universe, motion costs time. Every journey is a trade. Every step has a duration. But for light, traveling is more like being suspended along the edge of a moment, stretched thin across distance. From its own peculiar point of view, a journey of billions of years might feel like no time has passed whatsoever. Light doesn't seem to mind. It moves with the calm confidence of something that has found a loophole in the normal rules of experience. There is a certain charm in imagining light as a traveler who never stops for rest, not because it's impatient, but because it never learned how. It simply continues, unwavering, from the instant it appears until its journey is ended by something that finally asks it to slow down. Perhaps a surface ready to absorb it, or a delicate atom willing to welcome it inside. Until that moment, it carries momentum with a strange kind of dignity, as though honoring a promise it made long ago. And through all of this, through its speed, its weightlessness, its quiet persistence, light remains gentle. It does not trample space as it moves. It does not shove matter aside unless it is politely asked. It simply glides forward, carrying energy in the softest possible way, like a whisper crossing a canyon or a thought forming in a dreaming mind. Motion without weight, presence without mass. A traveler with no footsteps, no shadow of its own, and no need to pause for breath. Light's journey is one of the universe's calmest mysteries, always moving, always arriving, and never complaining about the distance. There is a peculiar serenity in the fact that the universe has a top speed, not a suggestion, not a guideline, but a firm, immovable ceiling, one that nothing can exceed, not even by accident. This ultimate velocity belongs to light, not because light trained for it, or because it insists on winning, but simply because the universe shaped its nature around that speed. It is the limit by which reality measures itself, one quietly woven into the fabric of space and time. When people think about speed, they imagine sprinting animals, racing machines, or particles rushing through accelerators with enough enthusiasm to make scientists raise an eyebrow. But even the most spirited runner, or the most determined rocket, eventually runs into friction, resistance, or sheer exhaustion. Everything with mass has to negotiate with the world as it moves, to bargain for momentum and pay the cost in energy. Light, however, has no such obligations. Its speed is not something it earns. It is simply what it is born with. When light travels, it does so at the universe's discretion. Its speed is woven into the equations that define reality, much like the rhythm in a song that cannot be altered without changing the entire melody. If one imagines the cosmos as an ancient storyteller, then the speed of light is the cadence it refuses to change, a steady, familiar beat that guides every event. It is neither rushed nor leisurely. It is simply absolute. What makes this speed so striking is not merely that it is fast, though at roughly 300,000 kilometers per second, it is undeniably swift, but that it represents something deeper. Nothing can go faster because the structure of space-time itself would rather not permit such unruly behavior. Trying to exceed the speed of light is like trying to walk off the edge of a completed puzzle. There is simply no place to go. The boundary is not a wall one could break through, but a principle that underlies existence. This limit is so ingrained in the universe that even those hypothetical beings, if they existed, who spend their lives thinking up ways to cheat cosmic rules would eventually shrug and say, well, that one's definitely not budging. Light itself seems entirely unconcerned with being the record holder. It never brags, never flaunts its speed, and never pauses to ask whether anything is catching up. It moves with the soft, unbothered confidence of someone who has learned long ago that competition is optional. There is a gentle humor in imagining how other things in the universe respond to this unbeatable pace. A particle with mass might give a valiant attempt at approaching the speed of light, accelerating through a laboratory with as much enthusiasm as the equipment allows, only to discover that every bit of progress demands more and more energy. It is as if the universe is gently placing a hand on its shoulder, saying, "Steady now. Let's not get carried away." The closer anything with mass tries to come to light speed, the more the universe seems to pull the reins. Time dilates, energy requirements soar, and motion becomes increasingly difficult, as though reality itself is politely encouraging moderation. Light, meanwhile, glides along exactly at the limit, not needing to try, not needing to fight for that privilege. It simply is what it is. Perhaps the most elegant part of this cosmic rule is how quietly it shapes the world. We do not feel the speed of light as a force or an insistence. There is no echo of its swiftness in our daily lives, no wind left behind by its passing. And yet everything, from the timing of satellites to the illumination of distant galaxies, is built around this unwavering limit. It is the calm gridwork beneath all motion. Even more quietly, the universe uses the speed of light to measure distance. Instead of choosing kilometers or miles, which are, after all, inventions of convenience, it prefers time. A light year is not so much a stretch of space as it is a duration. The time light needs to glide across the darkness. This way of marking distance has a softness to it, as though the universe itself prefers to think in terms of journeys rather than lengths. It is a reminder that motion is not just about where something goes, but how long it takes to get there. Light, in maintaining its perfect speed, becomes the universe's clock. Steady, unwavering, indifferent to circumstance. It does not slow down when it is tired, because it never grows tired. It does not rush when there is urgency, because urgency is a concept it does not acknowledge. Its pace is one of the few constants in a cosmos full of change, decay, creation, and flux. And yet, despite its consistency, light's speed is not loud or imposing. It does not blaze through space in a way that demands attention or admiration. Its motion is quiet, precise, almost meditative. If one could sit beside a beam of light and watch it move, an impossible thought, but oddly comforting, it would feel less like riding a roaring wave of speed and more like resting beside something that knows exactly what it is doing. In this way, the speed of light is not a race. It is not competition nor victory. It is a gentle rule, a cosmic preference, a boundary that keeps the universe ordered and coherent. It is the quiet way reality holds its shape. And light, humble in its unbreakable swiftness, simply continues along that boundary, steady, calm, and entirely uninterested in who may or may not be trying to catch up. Color enters the world not with a shout, but with a slow, deliberate breath. It is the moment when light decides to reveal that it is not a single thing at all, but a quiet collection of possibilities. Most of the time, light keeps this variety tucked neatly within itself, traveling in a calm, unified glow. But when the right conditions appear, water suspended in air, glass shaped just so, a sky thick with drifting particles, light gently unfurls into something more expressive. Color is not an added layer. It is light stretching, opening, revealing the subtle gradients held inside its brilliance. A rainbow is perhaps the most familiar example of this unfolding. It appears not as a spectacle forced upon the sky, but as a soft negotiation between sunlight and raindrops. Each droplet becomes a tiny chamber where light can pause just long enough to reconsider its form, bending slightly, separating subtly, spreading itself into distinct hues. None of these hues compete. They simply take their places in a calm procession. The arc they create feels almost ceremonial, like a quiet gathering of tones that would never raise their voices, even if given the chance. There is something charmingly modest about a rainbow. For all its beauty, it is not a solid object, not a painted arch suspended in the distance. It exists only because the observer, the raindrops, and the sunlight all happen to align. Move a few steps to the side, and the rainbow moves with you, not because it is following, but because it was never fixed in one place to begin with. It is more of an agreement than a structure, a fleeting handshake between angles and light. Even its colors fade gently at the edges, as though too polite to make abrupt endings. A prism performs a similar quiet act, though with a different charm. When a beam of light enters a polished piece of glass, the glass does not force the light into colors. Instead, it simply gives light a chance to slow down enough to show its subtleties. Inside the prism, each part of light shifts slightly, traveling through the material at its own preferred pace. As it emerges, these faint differences separate into distinct streams, a gentle sorting, like leaves drifting apart on a calm pond. The result is a soft fan of color, precise yet calm, as though light has decided to stretch after a long, uninterrupted journey. The evening sky, too, becomes a painter when the sun lowers itself toward the horizon. During the day, light arrives with enough directness to keep its colors neatly merged. But as the sun's path angles across the atmosphere, light must weave through far more air than before. In doing so, some of its components scatter away, leaving others to travel farther. Those warmer hues that settle into oranges, reds, and soft violets. The sky does not rush this process. It lets color transform slowly, the way someone drifts from one thought to another as the day winds down. What makes these colors so soothing is the way they appear without insistence. A sunset does not require attention. It offers something gentle that lingers even if no one looks. The transitions between shades are quiet and fluid, as though the sky itself is exhaling after a long day of holding brightness. Each hue blends into the next without border or boundary, reflecting light's own reluctance to draw firm lines between its many tones. Even in small moments, color behaves with the same subtlety. When light filters through leaves, it gathers the green softness of their structure, not by painting itself, but by allowing parts of its spectrum to be absorbed. What remains becomes the gentle wash of color we associate with foliage. A similar transformation occurs in the ocean, where light interacts with water so completely that deeper zones turn blue, then darker still, eventually becoming a soft, enveloping shade that feels almost like a quiet conversation between depth and distance. In each case, color emerges not as an announcement, but as a faint whisper of the interactions happening quietly in the background. Light does not force its hues forward. It simply responds to the world around it, altering its appearance in ways that feel almost contemplative. Sometimes it becomes warm, sometimes cool, sometimes bright or muted, or barely visible, but always in a manner that seems unhurried and respectful of its surroundings. This gentle unfolding of color is one of the universe's softer forms of expression. It is easy to imagine that light, given the chance to stretch itself into hues, enjoys the freedom of variation, not in a showy, attention-grabbing way, but in the manner of someone revealing a bit of personality when the moment feels right. The colors of the world are not fixed or rigid. They change subtly from day to day, cloud to cloud, droplet to droplet, as though light enjoys improvising its palette. Even the faintest colors have their place. The soft pinkness of early dawn, the bluish tinge of distant mountains, the delicate green of shallow water, all emerge from gentle interactions between light and matter. None demand explanation. They exist because light and the world find ways to shape each other without effort. In this calm unfolding, color becomes a reminder that light is more than a single idea. It is a quiet spectrum, capable of stretching into subtleties whenever conditions encourage it. In those moments, rainbows, prisms, skies brushed by the sun's slow descent, light shows its variation not with pride, but with the softness of something revealing its inner patterns in its own time. It is light thinking aloud, slowly enough for the world to listen, without ever raising its voice. If one tries to imagine light as a wave, the first instinct is often to imagine some kind of surface, a lake perhaps, with its gentle ripples spreading outward from where a single stone fell. But light does not need a lake. It does not need water or wind or any physical surface to ripple upon. Instead, its wave-like nature is something subtler, something that seems to unfold within space itself, as though the empty air has agreed to hold a pattern without ever insisting that it has substance. Light's waves are patterns of energy, rising and falling in a rhythm too swift for ordinary senses to perceive. If the world were slowed down enough, far beyond anything imaginable, one might see light as a kind of shimmering choreography, a dance of peaks and valleys that moves without touching anything. These patterns can stretch wide or fold tightly, becoming large, slow waves or quick, nimble ones. They can cross paths, blend gently, or drift apart again without friction or fuss. It is a kind of motion that feels more like a thought passing through space than a physical ripple. The beauty of light as a wave lies in how quietly it interacts with the world. When light reaches a small opening, perhaps the crack beneath a door or the space between the leaves of a plant, it doesn't insist on continuing in a straight line. Instead, It bends around edges, curving inward or outward as though reaching softly into the shadows. This bending is not a forced maneuver. It resembles the way water ripples curl when meeting a stone, except that light performs the same graceful motion without needing anything to push against. In places where multiple beams of light overlap, their waves mingle in a delicate, intricate way. Some portions rise higher when they meet, combining their subtle energies. Other parts cancel out, forming pockets of calm. These interactions are so gentle that they occur continuously and invisibly, shaping the brightness and softness of the world without announcing themselves. It is a quiet blending, reminiscent of melodies that harmonize not by volume but by presence. There is a comforting unpredictability in how light's waves spread. While their behavior follows deep rules of nature, the resulting patterns can feel organic, even spontaneous. Think of sunlight filtering through the branches of a tree, producing scattered patches of brightness on the ground. These shifting mosaics are shaped partly by the tree, partly by the air, and partly by the way light's waves fold and mingle as they pass through small gaps. No two patterns ever look the same, even beneath the same tree on the same day. Light's waves bring variation wherever they go, adding a gentle subtlety to every illuminated scene. In the soft glow of twilight, light's wave-like nature can be felt more than seen. As the sun lowers beyond the horizon, the remaining light scatters through the atmosphere, spreading out into long, smooth gradients. These transitions, in which color shifts slowly from gold to blue to violet, are shaped by the way light's waves interact with the air, filtering and bending at angles that give the sky a sense of depth. It is a kind of natural brushstroke, painted by patterns too swift for the eye to track directly, but slow enough in effect to create entire evenings of delicate color. Even reflections depend on the gentle behavior of light's waves. When light meets a smooth surface, the waves reorganize themselves, bouncing away in a pattern that preserves their shape. Mirrors do not trap or distort these waves. They simply guide them, like a calm hand redirecting flowing water. When the surface is uneven or textured, the waves scatter unpredictably, creating soft, diffused glows that feel warmer and more intimate. A candle's light on a rough wall, for instance, produces a flickering pattern that seems to breathe with the flame, shaped entirely by the subtle way its waves catch against the texture. One of the most soothing qualities of light's wave nature is how effortlessly it fills available space. If you were to place a light in a room, it would not choose a single direction or favor a particular path. Its waves spread in all directions at once, drifting through the air until they gently occupy every corner. The room does not resist this spread. It simply welcomes the presence, allowing the waves to settle wherever they can. Even places that seem tucked away, under a chair, behind a curtain, along the underside of a shelf, receive their share of illumination from this soft, ever-expanding pattern. Light's waves can also pass through each other without conflict. Two beams crossing paths do not collide like physical objects. Instead, they occupy the same space momentarily and continue on, entirely unbothered. It is as though they share an unspoken agreement that there is room enough for all of them, no matter how many waves may be passing through the same place. The calmness with which they coexist gives the world its richness, shadows that hold depth, reflections that shimmer, and brightness that seems to come from everywhere at once. In moments of stillness, when the sun shines onto a quiet pond, when moonlight slips through a window at night, when a ray of warmth touches a wall, light behaves with such gentle restraint that it becomes easy to forget the complexity behind its presence. Its waves move constantly, tirelessly, yet without any hint of agitation. They follow their intrinsic rhythm, a rhythm that shapes the world without demanding recognition. Light's wave nature is a reminder that motion doesn't always need force. It doesn't need noise or drama. Sometimes, motion can be a pattern, soft, continuous, and unbound by physical surfaces. Light's waves ripple through emptiness, shaping what we see, what we feel, and how the world appears at its quietest. They are the unseen rhythms beneath brightness, the delicate pulse of illumination drifting through space, as gentle as breath and as steady as a heartbeat, woven into the fabric of the world. If one imagines light as a constant traveler, then its particle-like nature feels almost like an unexpected twist in its character. Instead of gliding as a smooth, continuous presence, light sometimes arrives as individual parcels of energy, tiny, self-contained messengers that carry with them a peculiar confidence. These small units are often called photons, though the name matters far less than the idea that light can act as though it is composed of countless, discrete moments rather than a single, uninterrupted glow. What makes these particles so fascinating is not their size, because truthfully, they don't have one in any familiar sense, but their decisiveness. Each photon begins its journey with a specific amount of energy, a kind of internal signature that remains with it no matter how far it travels. There is no gradual fading, no slow erosion. A photon born in the core of a distant galaxy carries its tiny spark all the way across the endless dark, arriving unchanged after millions or billions of years. It is astonishingly steadfast for something that appears so fleeting when it finally reaches the human eye. These particles do not drift lazily through space. They travel with a directness that feels almost intentional, even though they have no awareness of their path. When a photon encounters matter, the interaction is instantaneous. It does not tap gently or negotiate. It simply transfers its energy and disappears, as though fulfilling an ancient obligation and bowing gracefully off stage the moment its task is complete. There is a certain elegance to this kind of existence. Short meetings, clean exits, and an unwavering sense of purpose. Yet for all this directness, photons are extraordinarily reserved. They never carry more than they need, never overstep, and never arrive early or late. When they strike the cells in the human eye, for instance, they deliver a minuscule burst of energy, just enough to stir a response. Not too much, not too little, but precisely what is required to begin the long chain of reactions that eventually forms a perception. It's almost as though photons have mastered the art of subtlety, communicating through the gentlest possible nudge. The world is filled with quiet reminders of light's particulate behavior. Consider the shimmering of metal under sunlight. That small glint is the result of countless photons striking the surface and scattering in all directions. Each one leaves behind a tiny contribution, and together they create the soft sparkle that seems to dance across reflective objects. In this way, photons behave less like a single wave of illumination and more like a crowd of small, enthusiastic performers, each playing a brief, precise note in a larger visual melody. There is also a delightful spontaneity in how photons appear. Many are released from atoms during quick rearrangements inside the atom's structure. When an electron shifts from one state to another, the atom responds by sending out a photon as casually as someone letting go of an idea they no longer need. These particles drift away without complaint, ready to cross vast distances or be absorbed almost immediately, depending on what the universe places in their path. They do not choose their destination, yet they travel with unwavering certainty. The journey of a photon can be astonishingly long or heartbreakingly short. Some emerge from nearby sources, a lamp, a candle flame, the gentle glow of a phone screen, and are intercepted within a fraction of a second. Others begin unfathomable journeys when matter rearranges itself in distant stars. They may travel across cosmic voids, passing galaxies, nebulae, and dust clouds, only to reach the Earth and end their journey quietly on a leaf, a grain of sand, or a human eyelash. After such grand voyages, their ending is so humble that one can't help but admire the patience involved. Despite their constant motion, photons display a remarkable sense of order. They can arrive singly or in streams, but each remains an individual arrival. If two photons reach the same destination at the same time, they do not merge or tangle. They simply deliver their energies separately, like two polite visitors leaving separate gifts at a doorstep. Their independence is absolute, yet it never disrupts the larger harmony of illumination they collectively create. One of the most curious traits of photons is how they carry momentum, an ability usually associated with mass. But photons manage it without ever possessing weight, pushing gently against whatever they strike. This push is incredibly slight, almost imperceptible in ordinary life, yet it exists with perfect consistency. It's a quiet reminder that even the smallest carriers of energy can influence the world, nudging matter with the soft insistence of something that knows its path, but holds no grudge if the world pushes back. The particle-like nature of light adds depth to its identity, revealing that illumination is not merely a glow, but a stream of individual travelers. Tiny sparks that move with discipline, humility, and an almost endearing sense of purpose. Light does not need to pick one identity over another. It can be a wave when the world calls for smoothness and a particle when precision is required. This duality is not a contradiction, but a kind of grace, a flexibility that allows light to participate in the universe in ways nothing else quite can. And so, even after billions of years of behaving both like a ripple and like a messenger. Light seems entirely comfortable with its dual personality. It never resolves the question of what it truly is. Perhaps it doesn't feel the need to. After all, it has crossed the universe this way for ages, self-contained, unwavering, and quietly undecided, carrying that indecision with remarkable poise. Light has a way of remembering things without ever trying to. It does not hold memories the way minds do. No stories, no thoughts, no nostalgia. But it preserves traces of where it has been with a quiet fidelity that feels almost archival. When light leaves its source, it carries with it the imprint of that moment. The temperature, the composition, the motions and moods of whatever produced it. It keeps these impressions intact through long, silent journeys, crossing distances so immense that even imagination struggles to follow. Starlight, in particular, is a traveler rich with ancient tales. When it begins its journey, the star that emitted it may be burning through a new phase, or settling into an older one, or trembling in a rhythm too slow for the eye to detect. That light leaves carrying no commentary, just the signature of that moment. And then it travels, quietly, without revising what it knows. Unlike living messengers, starlight never updates its information or adjusts its content. What it carries at the beginning is exactly what it delivers at the end, no matter how long the journey lasts. Some of these journeys are remarkably short. A ray from the sun, for instance, crosses the space between star and planet in a matter of minutes, arriving with news that is effectively fresh. But the light from distant stars is far more patient. It drifts across thousands, millions, or even billions of years, traveling through empty space with the composure of something entirely unbothered by time. The universe expands, galaxies shift, planets form and dissolve, and the light simply continues, preserving its message with quiet precision. When that ancient light finally reaches a destination, a telescope mirror, a cloud of gas, the surface of a planet, it has no awareness of the time it has spent or the changes that have occurred while it was en route. It delivers its information without ceremony, without realizing that it has brought an image from a time long lost. To the observer who receives it, that light reveals the past with astonishing intimacy. The star may have aged, transformed, or even vanished in the time since it sent its message, but its light has preserved a portrait of how it once was, as faithfully as any photograph. There is a gentle irony in this process. Light has no consciousness, no intention of being a historian, and yet it reveals history with exquisite accuracy. It is the universe's quiet reporter, never rushing to meet a deadline and never concerned that its news may be outdated. It moves at its steady, unwavering pace, unconcerned with whether anyone will be there to collect its delivery. Its message is available to any who care to receive it, even if that means waiting an eon or two. This kind of memory gives the cosmos a depth that would otherwise be invisible. Look at the night sky, and you are not seeing a present moment, but a vast mosaic of different ages. One star might shine with the freshness of a few years' travel, while another offers light that began its journey when early life on Earth had barely begun to stir. A third may be sending photons that started out long before Earth itself formed, carrying stories from a time when the universe was far younger, quieter, and filled with different patterns of stars and dust. Yet the sky does not reveal this timeline in any urgent way. It offers these fragments of cosmic memory gently, one twinkling point at a time. Each star seems perfectly content to share its ancient light without insisting on its importance. There is no hierarchy, no ranking of stories. A faint star on the horizon might hold a tale older than the brightest star overhead, yet both contribute equally to the night's calm. Light's memory extends beyond stars as well. When it reflects off the surface of a distant object, a planet, a moon, a drifting cloud of ice, it carries back with it the signature of that encounter. The reflected light from a world can reveal clues about its atmosphere, its seasons, its surface features. Light becomes the soft intermediary between distant places, offering hints of worlds unseen without ever imposing itself. Even the way light bends around massive objects holds memory. As it passes near clusters of galaxies or the edges of dense cosmic structures, its path curves gently, like a traveler taking a scenic detour. When this curved light eventually reaches an observer, it brings not only the story of its source, but also a faint trace of the places it passed along the way. These subtle distortions tell of gravity's influence, a delicate reminder that space itself has shaped the journey. Despite all of this, light never appears burdened by what it carries. It does not strain under the weight of its information or hesitate at the vast distances. It moves with a calm and unchanging grace, delivering its message when and where it can, without expectation. The universe may evolve, but the memory locked within each photon remains untouched, a tiny, tireless record of its origin. And so, when you look up at the night sky, you are not just seeing light, you are seeing memory traveling across the cosmos, arriving long after it began. Still clear, still intact, still patient. It is a reminder that the universe holds its past not in books or stories, but in beams of ancient illumination drifting through the dark, unhurried and unconcerned about how long they have been on their way. Light remembers not because it tries, but because it simply never forgets what it was when it began. Light does not move through the world as a solitary wanderer. Though it begins many of its journeys alone, traveling unaccompanied across wide stretches of space, it inevitably reaches a point where it must interact with matter. And when it does, the encounter is rarely abrupt or confrontational. Instead, it unfolds like a slow, subtle conversation, a negotiation between energy and the physical world, shaped by the quiet preferences of both. When light arrives at a surface, it does not immediately decide whether to stay or go. It lingers for the briefest instant, as though taking in the character of whatever it has touched. A smooth surface, polished with care or worn soft by time, tends to redirect light gently. This is reflection, but not in the sharp, mechanical sense of one thing bouncing off another. It is more like light being guided away with a soft gesture, as though the surface is saying, "Thank you for stopping by. Perhaps try another path." Mirrors offer the most precise of these redirections. When light encounters a well-prepared reflective surface, it leaves in almost the exact reverse of the angle it arrived. The mirror does not distort or hold on to the light. It simply offers a flawless return route. In this sense, mirrors behave like courteous hosts who allow visitors to pass through without altering them, offering a polite bow before sending them back into the world unchanged. Rougher surfaces, however, encourage a different sort of exchange. When light meets an uneven texture, stone, fabric, bark, skin, it scatters softly, splitting into countless directions. No photon is forced. Each simply follows the contour of the surface it encounters. The result is a gentle diffusion of brightness, a glow that feels warm and familiar precisely because it does not arrive from one sharp direction, but from many subtle ones. This is why daylight in a forest feels differently illuminated than daylight reflected off a lake. One spreads outward in a calm, intricate pattern. The other glimmers with directness. Absorption, too, is part of this unspoken dialogue. When light is absorbed, it does not so much disappear as it settles into the structure of matter. A photon touches an atom or molecule and transfers its energy, which is then carried forward as warmth or used in one of countless molecular processes. The light's journey ends, but its essence continues in a new form, like a traveler who decides to remain in a village rather than pressing on to the next town. Some materials, such as pigments and dyes, welcome specific photons more readily than others, giving rise to the colors we see. They are selective hosts, embracing some wavelengths and sending others gently away. Then there is scattering in the air itself, a kind of casual conversation between light and the tiny particles drifting through the atmosphere. As light passes through the sky, molecules greet it with varying enthusiasm. Some interactions nudge the light slightly off course, sending it in new directions with a feather-light touch. In daylight, these countless small diversions paint the sky in soft tones, creating vast expanses of gentle color. At dawn and dusk, when light travels through thicker layers of air, this exchange becomes even more intricate, reshaping the sky into hues that shift and dissolve with poetic patience. In fog or mist, the conversation grows more intimate. Water droplets, suspended delicately in the air, catch the light and scatter it in all directions at once. The world becomes bathed in a soft, even glow, as though the mist is returning every bit of light it receives in a quiet, communal sharing. Shadows soften, edges blur, and what remains is an atmosphere filled with a hush, a world temporarily translated into a watercolor. Even within transparent materials, light continues its dialogue. When it travels through glass, water, or clear crystal, it moves with a measured grace, adjusting its pace slightly as it weaves through the atoms in its path. This slowing is not resistance, it is cooperation. The material offers guidance, and the light navigates accordingly, emerging on the other side with its direction subtly reshaped, as though it has been listening carefully to the structure it passed through. In certain materials, light lingers a little longer. Fluorescent minerals, for instance, hold photons for a breath of time before releasing them again as new, softer glows. It is a temporary companionship, light staying for a quiet conversation before continuing onward in a different hue. Bioluminescent creatures also harness absorbed energy, weaving it into their own delicate emissions. Here, light becomes part of a slow biological story, participating in the rhythms of living organisms before returning to the broader world. Even the sparkle of stars through Earth's atmosphere is shaped by light's interaction with matter. As starlight travels through layers of air, each layer whispers a slightly different suggestion, nudging the light's path ever so slightly. This gentle shifting creates the familiar flicker of distant stars, a twinkling that feels alive, though it is simply the product of countless tiny negotiations between light and the moving air. In each of these interactions, reflection, absorption, scattering, light behaves with a sense of adaptability. It does not force itself onto the world, but allows the world to shape its path. Every encounter leaves a subtle imprint on the light's journey, whether by redirecting it, transforming it, or bringing it to a gentle close. And yet, no matter the outcome, the encounter remains peaceful. This slow conversation between light and matter is continuous, happening everywhere and always. It fills the world with softness, brightness, shadow, and color, creating a tapestry of illumination that feels far more like music than mechanics. Light's interactions are not battles or collisions. They are exchanges, negotiations, and quiet agreements. Through them, the world acquires depth, texture, warmth, and atmosphere. And light, whether it is welcomed, redirected, or absorbed, seems content with any outcome. It approaches every surface with the same calm presence, prepared for whatever interaction awaits, ready to continue its journey or to end it without resistance. A shadow is often described as an absence, a place where light hasn't reached. But shadows are not empty in the way a blank page is empty. They are quiet patterns, shaped by the dependable behavior of light, revealing how faithfully it travels in straight paths. Shadows are the world's gentle reminder that light, for all its grace and versatility, follows its course with unwavering honesty. If something stands in its way, light simply steps aside, leaving behind a silhouette shaped with surprising precision. Imagine light as a traveler who always chooses the direct route, never wandering or drifting off course. Not because it is stubborn or unimaginative, but because straight lines suit it. When an object blocks its path, light doesn't quibble or complain. It does not try to push through or negotiate. It simply arrives, acknowledges the obstacle, and moves around it as best it can. The shadow that forms behind the object is not a sign of defeat, but a quiet acceptance, a visual record of the path light didn't take. There is something comforting about this consistency. Light behaves the same whether it passes a mountain, a hand, or the edge of a teacup. It strikes an object, halts where it must, and fills the spaces around it. The resulting shadow is crisp or soft, depending on the shape of the light source. But the message remains the same. I traveled straight until something stood here. It is a truth so simple and so peaceful that it becomes easy to overlook. Shadows change shape throughout the day, lengthening and shrinking as the angle of illumination shifts. In the morning, they stretch far across the ground, reaching out with the long patience of early light. At noon, they gather close beneath things, small and concentrated, as though resting from the work of being so elongated earlier. By evening, they once again extend themselves, growing both larger and gentler as the sun lowers toward the horizon. Yet, through all these transformations, the principle remains unchanged. A shadow always reveals the geometry of light's path. The softness of a shadow depends on the size of the light source. A large, diffuse source, such as an overcast sky, creates shadows that are hardly there at all, more whispers than silhouettes. They rest lightly on surfaces, merging gradually with their surroundings until they seem more like gentle suggestions than firm outlines. In contrast, a small, bright source, a candle, a single lamp, a bare light bulb, produces shadows with decisiveness. Their edges are crisper, their shapes more certain, as if light wishes to make the message absolutely clear. These variations are not the result of light being temperamental. Rather, they arise from simple geometry, performed without haste or hesitation. Light spreads from every point of a luminous surface. The larger that surface is, the more directions the light comes from. When many directions are involved, the shadow becomes softer, blurred at the edges by the overlapping pathways. It is a little like hearing several quiet voices at once. The result is not confusion, but a harmonious blending that softens each individual line. There is a gentle humor in how easily objects create shadows. The smallest interruption in light's path, a leaf, a pebble, or even a passing insect, can cast a shape that briefly takes on a life of its own. A tiny fly can produce a surprisingly dramatic silhouette on a nearby wall, briefly magnified by the geometry of distance and angle. For that moment, the fly becomes a silent giant, an unintended artist in the ephemeral craft of shadow making. Light does not object to this interruption. It allows the moment to unfold with the composure of something accustomed to life's small intrusions. Shadows indoors tell quieter stories. The lamplight in a room creates pockets of softness, gathering behind furniture and beneath shelves. These shadows give depth to familiar spaces, reminding the eye that light has direction and structure even when it arrives from something as ordinary as a desk lamp. They anchor objects, giving them presence. Without shadows, the world would appear oddly flat, lacking the subtle cues that help us sense form and distance. Outdoors at night, shadows become more dramatic. A single street lamp casts branching patterns beneath trees, turning their leaves into intricate lacework on the ground. A figure walking beneath the lamp leaves a long, steady silhouette in its wake, moving in quiet synchrony with each step. These nighttime shadows feel more deliberate, partly because the surrounding darkness sharpens the contrast. and partly because the human mind is more attuned to small movements in dim light. Yet even here, the underlying principle is simple. Light travels in straight lines, and anything in its path tells the world where those lines stop. One of the loveliest qualities of shadows is their impermanence. They shift with the light, vanish when the source is removed, reform instantly when it returns. They carry no memory of their past shapes, no lingering trace of what they once recorded. Their existence is always in the present moment, renewed literally at the speed of light. This makes them calming in a way, an ever-changing reminder that the world is shaped continuously by the movement of illumination. Even celestial shadows follow these rules. When a planet eclipses another body, the resulting darkness is nothing more than a grand-scale illustration of geometric honesty, a cosmic silhouette cast across vast distances. These events feel dramatic to observers, but the light involved behaves with the same calm consistency it uses when passing the edge of a window frame. Shadows, then, are not absences. They are gentle confirmations of light's directness, its straightforward path, its familiarity with simple geometry, and its ability to coexist with whatever stands in its way. Light never takes the blocking personally. It simply adjusts, yielding where it must, and illuminating where it can, leaving behind a quiet trace of its encounter in the soft, shifting language of shadow. Light, for all its cosmic journeys and elegant physics, also has a quiet life woven into the lives of living things. It does not announce this role. It does not insist on being acknowledged, but its presence shapes the rhythms, growth, and behavior of creatures across the world, from the smallest leaf to the most complex mind. In these roles, light becomes less of a traveler and more of a companion, steady, patient, and remarkably modest. In plants, light is an intimate partner. It slips into leaves with the delicacy of a whispered suggestion, triggering processes so intricate and quiet that they unfold unnoticed even by the plant itself. Though the internal chemistry of photosynthesis is famous, the atmosphere surrounding it is not one of intensity. Light enters a leaf the way a gentle visitor steps into a greenhouse, curious, unhurried, offering something essential without insisting on gratitude. Once inside, it hands over its energy, allowing the plant to weave that gift into sugars and oxygen. After this exchange, the light does not linger. It completes its contribution and quietly fades, leaving the plant to do the rest. This cooperation between plant and light shapes entire landscapes. Forests rise where light is plentiful enough to feed their layered communities. Mosses clutch damp stones in places where only the softest rays reach. Sunflowers turn their faces to follow the path of illumination across the sky, as though keeping polite company with their most reliable collaborator. Even deep beneath the surface of the ocean, where sunlight wanes into a blue-hued softness, certain plants and algae find ways to gather what little remains. Light may not be abundant there, but the few photons that arrive are received with gratitude. Animals, too, rely on light in subtler ways. Many creatures organize their lives around its presence and absence, moving through patterns shaped by dawn, midday, twilight, and night. Birds greet the first light of morning, not merely because it is bright, but because it marks a shift in the world's rhythm, a cue that subtly aligns their senses. Some animals, such as reptiles, soak in sunlight to warm their bodies, using light not only as a signal, but as a tool for maintaining balance. Others rely on the colors and brightness of daylight to select mates, avoid dangers, or navigate familiar paths. In the deep sea where sunlight cannot reach at all, some creatures have taken matters into their own hands. They produce their own glow, harnessing chemical reactions to create a private form of illumination known as bioluminescence. Though this light is born from internal chemistry rather than the sun, it still reflects a universal truth. Living things are drawn to brightness, however faint or fleeting, using it to communicate, attract, or camouflage. In a sense, even creatures that have never seen sunlight are shaped by the idea of light, a quiet echo of its influence traveling downward through evolution. Humans, for their part, are deeply entangled with light in ways they seldom notice. The rising and setting of the sun have framed human activity for as long as humanity has existed. Long before clocks and schedules, the world was divided into stretches of brightness and darkness, and life flowed in harmony with this simple alternation. Inside the human body, light guides internal cycles with astonishing precision. A tiny region deep within the brain keeps track of daily rhythms, adjusting the body's timing based on the light that enters through the eyes. This cue is so subtle that it works even when a person is half asleep, merely sensing the presence or absence of illumination behind closed eyelids. These rhythms influence everything from energy levels to mood, appetite, and sleep. When morning light reaches the eyes, it signals the body to begin its internal day, nudging hormones and temperature toward wakefulness. Evening light, by contrast, encourages the body to slow, gently shifting its chemistry toward rest. Even artificial light, though not as elegantly tuned as the sun, participates in this conversation. Its glow can extend waking hours, soften the night, or, if mistimed, confuse the body slightly. Yet through it all, the body listens to light with a trust that borders on devotion. There are quieter collaborations as well. Plants growing in a window lean toward the light unconsciously, reaching for it with the kind of yearning that requires no awareness. Human skin responds to sunlight by producing molecules that support bone health, while protecting itself through gradual pigmentation. Some creatures develop patterns or colors that change in different lighting conditions, adjusting their appearance just enough to blend into their surroundings. These interactions are not dramatic. They unfold gradually, like long conversations held over many years. Even the mood of a place depends on how light settles within it. A dimly lit room encourages softness, calm, and reflection. A sunlit field can evoke energy and movement. Human architecture has quietly adapted to this truth for millennia, shaping homes, temples, and cities to catch light in ways that feel welcoming. Windows are placed not only for visibility, but for companionship, so that light may join the space as a silent guest. What makes light's involvement in living processes so remarkable is its humility. It never imposes itself, It does not demand acknowledgement or gratitude. It simply offers its energy and cues, allowing life to build upon them. Plants turn light into nourishment. Animals turn it into rhythm. Humans turn it into meaning, mood, and memory. In this way, light becomes a background collaborator, a steady presence woven into the fabric of living things, guiding, nourishing, and shaping without ever insisting on recognition. It supports life with the calm assurance of something that has always been there and expects nothing in return. Warmth is one of light's most comforting secrets, an invisible gift hidden within its brightness, revealed only when light meets something willing to receive it. To see sunlight is one experience, but to feel it is another, softer encounter entirely. The warmth that arrives with illumination does not rush or demand attention. It settles into the world with patience, soaking into surfaces and easing itself into the materials it touches. In this way, light becomes a quiet source of comfort, delivering its energy not with force but with gentle persistence. When sunlight reaches a stone, the encounter begins in silence. The light settles across the surface, absorbing into the stone's mineral structure. At first, the stone may feel cool, as though it has not yet realized that warmth is arriving. But slowly, as the minutes pass, a change unfolds. The stone gathers heat with a kind of grounded contentment, storing the sun's energy in its dense body. Even after the sun has moved on, leaving the stone in shadow, that warmth lingers, radiating outward with the slow exhale of something that has held a gentle secret and now shares it gradually. This is the nature of warmth from light, a patient settling, a motion transformed into stillness. Light arrives as a swift traveler, pure motion, racing across space. But once absorbed, its journey becomes part of the world's quiet, physical life. It slips into matter, softening cold surfaces, encouraging the soil to release its chill, coaxing the air into gentler temperatures. The sharp speed of light dissolves into the soft diffusion of warmth, replacing motion with calm. Human skin receives sunlight in much the same way. On a cool morning, a ray of sun falling across a shoulder or cheek feels like an invitation, a quiet reassurance that the world is waking gently. The skin absorbs the light, turning it into a subtle glow that spreads inward. This kind of warmth is not aggressive. It does not overwhelm the senses. Instead, it settles gradually, encouraging muscles to relax and breath to deepen. Even with closed eyes, the presence of sunlight can be felt as a soft expansion, a sense of being lightly embraced by something ancient and familiar. Plants, soil, water, all absorb light's warmth according to their nature. The earth, especially, gathers heat with remarkable patience. Throughout the day, the ground absorbs sunlight, storing it deep within layers of rock, clay, and sand. By evening, when the surface begins to cool, the ground releases its warmth slowly, providing the nighttime air with a gentle, steady heat. This is why deserts, despite their scorching days, grow cold so quickly at night. Their sandy surfaces hold warmth lightly, releasing it back into the air almost as soon as the light departs. Stone, by contrast, remembers warmth longer, as if it appreciates the sun's gift and wishes to savor it. The warmth of light shapes wind and weather too. When sunlight warms the surface of the earth unevenly, the air responds with quiet adjustments. Warm air rises, cool air moves in, and the world begins to circulate itself in slow, vast currents. These movements are unhurried, driven by the differences in heat that light has created. The winds that cross landscapes, the gentle updrafts that lift birds, the comforting breeze that cools a summer evening, all emerge from the patient work of light becoming warmth. In colder seasons, the warmth hidden inside brightness can feel especially precious. When winter arrives and sunlight grows thin, its warmth becomes softer, more delicate. A patch of sun on the floor or across a wall may feel like a small treasure, a gentle reminder that the world still turns toward brightness even as temperatures fall. Many creatures seek out this warmth instinctively, curling up in sunny spots or adjusting their rhythms to make use of whatever light is available. Cats, in particular, seem to have perfected this art, stretching themselves luxuriously across sunlit surfaces as though honoring an ancient contract with the sun. Water responds to sunlight in its own patient way. Lakes and oceans absorb vast quantities of energy, warming slowly, influencing entire climates with their thermal memory. The warmth of shallow waters invites life to flourish, while deeper layers remain cool and stable. Even the smallest pools reflect and store sunlight in ways that shape their tiny ecosystems. This warmth becomes part of the rhythm of life, encouraging growth, migration, and seasonal change. One of the most soothing aspects of this warmth is its consistency. While sunlight may vary in intensity from day to day, the manner in which it becomes heat is always steady. There is no violence in the transition, no sudden jump. It is a gradual melding of energy and matter, emerging so gentle that the result feels natural and inevitable. Light gives its motion to the world, and the world, in turn, holds that motion until it finally relaxes into rest. In the evening, as the sun lowers and its brightness fades, the warmth it has delivered remains for a time. Walls, soil, stones, and water release their stored heat slowly, creating a lingering softness in the air. Even after darkness arrives, the day's warmth continues to drift upward in faint waves. This residual warmth is the final gesture of light's daily work, the echo of its presence moving gently back into the atmosphere. Warmth from light is subtle, but unmistakable. It is the quiet way motion becomes stillness, speed becomes comfort, and brilliance becomes calm. Light travels across vast, incomprehensible distances with incredible velocity, only to rest in the simplest of places: a rock on a hillside, a fold of earth, a patch of skin. That rest transforms everything it touches, leaving a steady imprint that feels almost like a promise. Light may be swift, but the warmth it creates lingers, offering a softness that outlasts its brightness. Long before humans understood anything about photons or wavelengths, or any of light's hidden intricacies. They were already trying to bring it closer. Night fell, as it always has, with its vast quiet and its distant stars, and early people gathered around the most ancient imitation they could create: fire. The first flame was not a declaration of mastery over nature, but a humble echo, a tiny ember meant to remind the night that the sky once held brightness. It flickered, wavered, and danced as though unsure whether it belonged to earth or sky, casting a warm glow that felt familiar in a way no one could quite explain. Fire was never a perfect copy of sunlight. It shimmered with its own restless personality, giving off light that felt alive and slightly unpredictable. Flames twist and shift even when the air is still, as though they're remembering something they once learned from the stars but can't quite replicate. Yet for all its unpredictability, fire offered a sense of companionship. It gathered people together, not because of its brightness alone, but because its light made the darkness feel less vast and less lonely. Candles carried this imitation forward with more restraint. A candle's flame is a softened version of fire, calmer, more deliberate, as if it has been taught to whisper rather than sing. It shines steadily, resting on its wick like a thought held gently between breaths. The glow of a single candle has a way of turning a room into a sanctuary, not because it overwhelms the shadows, but because it coexists with them. In its small radius, the candle imitates a star with an almost endearing optimism. I may be tiny, it seems to say, but I can keep my corner of the world warm. As centuries passed, lanterns and oil lamps extended this tradition, offering portable pockets of brightness that persisted through wind and rain. Their light had a golden softness, a slight trembling that suggested movement even when still. The glass surrounding them provided a sense of protection, like a fragile shield against the encroaching night. These early devices were more intentional imitations than fire alone. They shaped light, held it, and offered it boundaries. They gave humans a way to carry a bit of brightness wherever they went, the way one might carry a small keepsake from a distant place. Then came electric light, an invention that replaced fire's flicker with something steadier and more obedient. The first incandescent bulbs glowed with a warmth familiar to flame, but without flame's wandering nature. They shone with confidence, as if thrilled by the opportunity to exist without the constant threat of being blown out by a careless draft. Yet even these bulbs, for all their reliability, were still recitations of a much older script. They produced a glow shaped by electricity, but the glow itself was still an imitation, another human attempt to recreate the comfort of daylight in places where daylight could not reach. Electric light changed the rhythm of human life. It made evenings brighter, softened the boundary between day and night, and invited activity to spill across hours once reserved for rest. But this brightness, steady, unwavering, was still different from the sun. The sun's light shifts as it crosses the sky, altering its warmth and hue with gentle nuance. Electric light, in contrast, remains constant unless someone changes it deliberately. It lacks the subtle emotional states of sunlight, but offers reliability in return. Its constancy is its kindness, an unwavering presence that asks nothing and falters rarely. Later innovations brought fluorescent tubes, LEDs, and screens that shine with crisp, modern precision. These lights imitate daylight with increasing accuracy, producing tones and temperatures designed to mimic the sun's palette. Yet they still reveal their artificial nature in subtle ways. Sunlight scatters through the air, softening edges and shaping shadows with quiet complexity. Artificial light tends to illuminate in straight lines, leaving shadows that lack the gentle diffusion of natural daylight. Even the best designed bulbs carry the faint signature of engineering, a clarity that feels helpful but not entirely organic. Despite these differences, artificial light has become an intimate companion in human environments. Lamps by bedsides, streetlights lining quiet roads, strings of lights winding through gardens or across balconies, all create their own atmospheres. Some lights glow warm and nostalgic, others bright and clinical, but each one participates in humanity's ongoing conversation with brightness. They are smaller stars, placed deliberately where they are needed most. Perhaps the most charming quality of artificial light is how earnestly it tries. A lantern by a tent imitates starlight in a way that feels both tender and slightly self-conscious. A desk lamp bends its neck like a sunflower, offering illumination exactly where it's wanted. Holiday lights flicker with the enthusiasm of fireflies, as though auditioning for a role in the night sky. Even a quiet nightlight tucked into a hallway performs its task with gentle devotion, shining just brightly enough to reassure anyone wandering past. In all these forms, artificial light is not a replacement for stars or sunlight. It is an echo, a reflection of humanity's desire to bring brightness inward, to create small, domestic suns that fit inside homes, cities, and pockets. The original sources of light, the blazing stars scattered across the cosmos, remain far beyond reach, but their patterns and comforts linger in every lamp and flame. Artificial light is humanity's way of writing a soft, glowing note to the universe. We remember the stars, even indoors. And in their own modest ways, these little imitations keep the night gentle, warm, and companionable, mirroring something far older while never pretending to replace it. Light, for all its quiet immediacy, carries with it a gentle illusion. When it arrives, whether from a nearby flame, a distant star, or the faint glow of a galaxy, it presents itself as a message from the present moment. Yet the truth is calmer and far more intricate. Every piece of light has taken time to travel, however brief or vast. It brings with it a small echo of the past, delivered without urgency, without apology, and without any sense that it's arriving late. In this way, light and time drift so closely together that their boundaries begin to soften, blending into something almost indistinguishable. As you look outward, into the world, into the sky, into the deep expanse beyond, the light that reaches your eyes is always a messenger from another moment. The world around you is seen not quite as it is now, but as it was, carried on the backs of countless tiny travelers moving at the universe's highest speed. For nearby things, this delay is unnoticeable. A tree outside your window, a cloud drifting lazily overhead, even the city lights across a river, they all appear nearly in sync with your present moment. But the principle is still there, quietly in place. The light you see from them began its journey just a little while ago, and only now completes it by reaching you. When the distance grows, this effect becomes more apparent. The moon's glow, familiar and gentle, is already a small piece of the past by the time it reaches Earth. Its light reflects off the lunar surface and crosses space with perfect steadiness, taking just over a second to arrive. A second may not feel significant, but it means that every lunar shimmer is a quiet memory, a slight temporal echo drifting through space. As your gaze extends farther, the delays grow longer. The sun, bright, immediate, seemingly present, shows itself as it was several minutes earlier. The sunlight warming your face during a calm afternoon began its journey long before it touched your skin, crossing the space between star and planet with unwavering pace. This delay is small enough to ignore, yet large enough to hint at the deeper truth. The farther light travels, the more of the past it carries with it. Starlight complicates this further. Many of the gentle points scattered across the night sky began their illumination long before any human ever existed. When you look at a star, you are witnessing a moment from its distant past, a moment it didn't preserve intentionally, but which remained because light is incapable of arriving instantaneously. Some stars you see tonight may have already changed, dimmed, or ended their own stories, but their final light continues to glide through space, undisturbed by the events that occurred after it left. Looking at such stars is like receiving a letter written ages ago, one that arrives only because the writer sent it on a path that could not be hurried. Light does not mind this delay. It travels with unwavering consistency, never concerned about whether the world will still be the same when it finally reaches its destination. Time, too, appears unbothered, letting these moments stack gently on top of one another. Together, light and time create a layered vision of the universe, one in which distance becomes a subtle translation of memory. Galaxies add their own depth to this quiet tapestry. A glowing swirl in the night may be millions of years away, its light starting its journey long before Earth took its familiar shape. The soft spiral drifting in your telescope belongs to an earlier era of the cosmos, a snapshot preserved not by intention, but by the sheer patience of light in motion. And when you observe galaxies even farther away, you are looking into times so ancient that they feel almost disconnected from the present. The universe's past drifts toward you in faint streams, telling stories that no sound or relic could carry across such immense spans. Light becomes a kind of gentle historian, offering glimpses of eras that have long since faded. But it never claims to be a perfect record. It does not correct itself or update its messages. It simply continues, carrying each moment forward with calm fidelity. Time, meanwhile, continues its steady march, unconcerned with how many moments have been stacked behind or ahead. This indifference gives the cosmos a serenity that is almost soothing, moments layered across distance, light moving through them like a soft thread binding them together. And yet, for all these implications, looking into the night sky does not feel like reading history. It feels immediate, present, and real. This is the subtle magic of light's entanglement with time. Even when it carries ancient memories, light offers them as though they belong to the now. A star's glow may come from an age long gone, but it arrives without dust, without wear, without any hint of how far it has traveled. It presents the past in the form of a perfectly preserved moment, untouched by everything that occurred in between. For this reason, light and time can feel inseparable, two aspects of a single gentle process, rather than separate ingredients of the universe. Light reveals the passing of time by carrying old moments forward, and time reveals the journey of light by shaping how long it takes to arrive. They are companions, traveling together through the cosmos without conflict or competition. Perhaps what makes this blend so calming is the way it shrinks the distinction between then and now. The universe is full of light that left its source so long ago that naming the age of that moment becomes almost poetic. Yet that same light reaches you here, in the present, offering its ancient stories in a way that feels personal and immediate. The past becomes something you can see, not in a dramatic or urgent way, but gently, like a reflection in water. In this quiet merging of light and time, the cosmos reveals itself not as a single moment, but as a continuum. Every glow is a memory. Every star is a messenger. Every distant shimmer is a calm reminder that time itself is not a barrier, but a landscape through which light drifts, unhurried, untroubled, and entirely serene. Darkness is often described as the absence of light, but that phrasing makes it sound too stark, too final, as though darkness were simply a blankness waiting to be filled. In truth, darkness has its own presence, soft, steady, and patient. It is not an opponent to illumination, nor a void demanding attention. Instead, darkness is a natural counterpart, a quiet region where light's journey pauses, softens, or simply cannot proceed. The relationship between light and darkness is not a struggle, but a gentle boundary, a calm division woven into the world with unhurried care. Some places resist light not out of hostility, but because their nature leaves no path for brightness to travel. Deep caves, for example, form folds within the earth where sunlight cannot reach. The entrances may admit faint gleams, but as the passages wind downward, they quickly move beyond the reach of surface illumination. Inside these spaces, darkness becomes a soft blanket, settling quietly against stone walls that have never felt the warmth of day. This darkness does not feel aggressive. It simply exists, holding a kind of gentle calmness that comes from being untouched. Creatures that live in such places adapt to this constant shadow in elegant ways. Certain cave fish lack eyes entirely, not because light harmed them, but because they had no need for it. Their existence flows through senses other than sight, touch, vibration, chemical cues, proof that life is entirely capable of settling comfortably where light cannot go. In these deep caverns, darkness becomes not an obstacle but a habitat, offering a stillness that the bright world above cannot match. The ocean depths echo this tranquility with even greater expansiveness. As one descends through the layers of water, sunlight gradually fades, not abruptly, but with a respectful retreat. Colors vanish one by one, then brightness itself grows faint until, eventually, there is only darkness left. The deep sea is a realm where light's reach ends gently, its energy absorbed by the countless molecules of water above. In this vast quiet, darkness becomes the default condition, shaping ecosystems built entirely on subtlety and calm. Bioluminescent creatures flicker with cautious glows, but even their light does not travel far. It is a whisper, not a proclamation, offered only to nearby companions. There are also places where light does not merely fade, it is compelled to stop entirely. Black holes represent this boundary most vividly, though without any of the drama their reputation suggests. They are regions of space where gravity becomes so concentrated that space itself curves inward. Light, which normally travels with unerring confidence, finds its path redirected so sharply that it cannot escape. The result is not a violent capture, but a gentle inevitability, a quiet agreement that beyond a certain boundary, known as the event horizon, even light must let go of its outward journey. From a distance, black holes do not appear as hungry monsters devouring everything in sight. They reveal themselves primarily through silence, places where no light returns. The darkness around them is not menacing. It is simply a region where illumination cannot complete its path. And just as water naturally flows into low places, light naturally obeys the shape of space around a black hole. There is no conflict, only a graceful adherence to the universe's quiet geometry. Even the night sky, perhaps the most familiar canvas of darkness, is not empty. It is a backdrop of calm behind the scattered points of starlight, a vast expanse that allows each star to shine clearly without distraction. The darkness between stars gives form to the constellations, helping the eye trace shapes across the sky. Without those deep stretches of shadow, the heavens would be less distinct, less inviting. Darkness here is not a void. It is the frame that helps the lights of the cosmos stand out in their quiet brilliance. In winter, when nights linger longer, the darkness feels almost companionable. It arrives early, settles gently around homes and fields, and invites stillness. Streetlights glow more warmly against its backdrop. Windows shine with domestic light that seems cozier for the contrast. The world does not resist this seasonal darkness. It adjusts to it, slowing its pace, softening its sounds. Darkness becomes a time for rest, reflection, and the simple act of being still. Even on a human scale, darkness has constructive roles. It shelters seeds beneath the soil, allowing them to germinate at their own unhurried pace, and it provides rest for countless animals who rely on shadow to remain unseen during sleep. And for humans, darkness signals a shift toward quiet, the gentle cue for evening routines, the dimming light that encourages the mind to release the busyness of the day. Light and darkness maintain a quiet partnership in these rhythms. Light reveals, warms, awakens. Darkness cools, rests, restores. One does not replace the other. They alternate, overlapping in twilight and dawn with beautiful subtlety. Their boundaries are not rigid lines, but soft transitions, as though they understand each other's presence intimately. The places where light cannot go are not failures of illumination. They are simply regions where different forms of stillness flourish. Light ends its journey there without regret, and darkness receives it without triumph. Together, they shape a universe that holds both brightness and quiet, allowing life and matter to find balance between the two. In the calm of these unseen spaces, deep caves, ocean abysses, starless regions of the night sky, darkness persists with gentle dignity. It asks nothing, reveals nothing, hides nothing. It is simply the counterpart to light, completing the rhythm of the cosmos in silence. Evening is not the end of light, though it is easy to think of it that way. What appears to be a departure is simply a change in angle, a gentle turning of the world that shifts your perspective while light continues on its steady path. The sun lowers itself toward the horizon with unhurried grace, not diminishing in strength, but offering its radiance from a different direction, one that softens brightness into a long, lingering glow. As it descends, the world feels quieter, as though light itself is preparing for a period of restful stillness. The fading of daylight has a patience that feels almost meditative. It doesn't vanish quickly, nor retreat with urgency. Instead, it withdraws in gentle layers, thinning gradually as it bends through more of the atmosphere. Colors loosen their intensity, blending into gentler tones. The brightness that once defined the shapes of the world grows more diffused, settling into corners and edges with a calmness that invites the mind to breathe a little slower. There is a moment, just after the sun dips out of sight, when the sky holds onto a soft afterglow. It is not quite day, not quite night, but a suspended time when light seems to rest along the horizon. This moment has no sharp beginning or end. It drifts, lingering just long enough to mark the transition without insisting on being noticed. Trees become silhouettes, rooftops soften into outlines, and the first stars emerge cautiously as though testing the quiet. It's in this delicate phase that the world feels held, neither illuminated nor darkened, but gently balanced between the two. As evening deepens, light does not disappear. It simply becomes indirect. The sky continues to glow in subtle gradients, blues giving way to darker shades, purples dissolving into soft grays. These colors shift so slowly that you rarely see the change happen. Instead, you notice only that the world has become just a bit dimmer, just a bit more subdued, as though the light has chosen to lie down for a while. Even artificial lights, placed carefully by human hands, seem to respect this quiet decline, flickering on one by one with a kind of domestic modesty. The Earth's rotation plays its part with steady rhythm. As the planet turns, the distribution of light across its surface changes with the dependable cadence of a long, slow breath. One hemisphere relaxes into darkness while the other brightens into morning. This rhythm continues regardless of who witnesses it. Light has been rising and fading in this way long before anyone thought to give it names like dawn, dusk, or twilight. In the cooling air, surfaces release the warmth they gathered throughout the day. The ground exhales its stored heat, creating a gentle shift in temperature that invites the first hints of night. This transition is not abrupt. It mirrors the softness of the fading light. Even the shadows change character, losing their sharpness and blending together into a broader, quieter darkness. The world seems to tuck itself into softer contours, as if responding to the light's unspoken encouragement to rest. Windows begin to glow faintly as indoor lamps illuminate, creating small islands of warmth against the dimming sky. These lights do not compete with the fading daylight. They complement it, joining the evening with a gentler tone. They reflect the human impulse to accompany the night with brightness. But even these lights tend to burn more softly at this hour, as though aware that the world is preparing for stillness. Night settles gradually. Stars fill the sky not all at once, but in a slow bloom, appearing wherever the darkness becomes deep enough to reveal them. Their arrival feels natural, not dramatic, simply the next gentle step in light's ongoing rhythm. Each star shines from its place in the distance, steady and unbothered, repeating patterns that have unfolded for countless nights before. Their presence adds texture to the sky, a soft reminder that illumination continues even when the sun rests below the horizon. As darkness takes fuller hold, the last traces of daylight fade into memory. But the sense of light remains, not as brightness, but as an awareness of its quiet continuity. Light doesn't cease to exist. It simply continues beyond your view, illuminating other places, touching other surfaces, warming other worlds. Its journey is constant, even when you do not see it. Evening is just your portion of the planet turning gently away, creating the illusion of light stepping aside. In the quiet hours of night, the absence of direct illumination becomes its own kind of presence. The world feels unhurried, reflective, as though holding its breath in the soft hush between day and dawn. The ground cools, the air settles, and the sounds of the world grow quieter. Light's influence lingers subtly in the warmth stored by stones, in the faint glow of starlight, in the memory of the day's brightness. Eventually, somewhere else along the curve of the planet, dawn begins its approach. Light touches the edges of another horizon, stretches across new landscapes, and begins another slow ascent. It does so without seeking recognition, without asking whether anyone noticed its departure or anticipated its return. Its presence is constant, though your place on the world allows you to experience only a portion at any given time. And so, As your own landscape settles deeper into evening, light continues in its own steady rhythm, moving, glowing, warming, fading, comfortable in its unending journey, content to illuminate wherever the world happens to turn. There is no ceremony, no insistence, only the quiet grace of brightness giving way to stillness, and stillness waiting patiently for brightness to return.